Commander Jinwoo Park pressed his hands against the cold metal railing of Luna Station's observation deck. The stars looked the same as they always had, but something was terribly wrong. The tactical display behind him showed nothing but empty space where Earth's mighty fleets should have been patrolling. "Sir, incoming transmission from Sector 7, Lieutenant So-Young Kim's voice cracked as she spoke into her headset. Her usually steady hands shook as she adjusted the controls. Wait, ... no, the signal just died. That's the fourth one in 10 minutes. Jinwoo turned back to face the command center. Red warning lights bathed everything in an eerie glow. Officers, who had been calm and professional just hours ago, now moved with the jerky, desperate motions of people trying not to panic. "Give me a full report," Jinwoo ordered, though he already feared what he would hear. So-Young's face had gone pale. The Third Fleet was conducting routine patrols near the Centauri system. Last transmission was at 0347 hours then. ... nothing. No explosion signatures, no debris fields, no emergency beacons. They're just gone. The communications officer at the next station looked up with wide eyes. "Sir, it's not just the Third Fleet. The 7th, the 9th, the Home Guard squadrons around Mars. ... Every military vessel we had deployed has gone silent." Felt ice forming in his stomach. 30,000 ships, 500,000 military personnel, the entire backbone of human defense, simply erased. Equipment malfunction. He asked, knowing it was impossible but needing to hear it said, "Negative, sir." Civilian vessels in the same areas are reporting clear communications. It's only our military assets that have vanished. The next few hours passed in a blur of desperate attempts at contact. Jinwoo watched as his best officers tried every trick they knew to reach the missing fleets. They boosted signal strength, changed frequencies, even attempted to contact individual soldiers through their personal communicators. Nothing worked. It was as if humanity's entire military force had been surgically removed from reality. Then came the alien broadcast. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking perfect Korean with no trace of emotion. "Citizens of the human species, your military forces have been displaced beyond your dimensional reach. This demonstration of our power is complete. You will surrender unconditionally within 72 hours, or face the complete annihilation of your species." Jinwoo stared at the main screen as the message repeated in dozens of human languages. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony, and they seemed to know everything about human military structure. They had targeted every organized defense force with surgical precision. "How is this possible?" So-Young whispered. Before Jinwoo could answer, a new voice crackled through the comm system. It was rough and weathered, speaking with the accent of someone who had spent decades in space. "This is General Hyeon-Soo Lee broadcasting from Ceres Mining Station. To all human settlements, all colonies, all stations still receiving this transmission, listen carefully." Jinwoo recognized the name. Lee had been one of Earth's greatest military minds before retiring to run asteroid mining operations in the belt. Most people had forgotten about the old general. "Aliens think they've won because they took our ships and our soldiers," Lee continued. "They studied our military structure, learned our chain of command, figured out how to remove our organized forces. Smart plan. Would have worked against most species." There was a pause, and Jinwoo could hear the sound of machinery in the background of Lee's transmission. But they made one critical error. They assumed that our military was our strength. About to learn that every human colonist, every miner, every farmer, every engineer is a weapon waiting to be activated. We don't need fancy battleships to fight. We just need to remember what we are. Jinwoo felt something stir in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the stubborn human refusal to give up. "I'm activating Protocol Ghost Tiger," Lee announced. "Every civilian station, every mining operation, every research facility will receive activation codes within the hour. They took our armies, but they left us our people. That was their mistake." So-Young looked at Jinwoo with confusion. "What's Protocol Ghost Tiger?" Jinwoo smiled grimly. He'd heard whispers of contingency plans during his military training. "Backup systems designed for the worst possible scenarios. It's what happens when you push humans too far," he said. Across the solar system, ordinary civilians were about to become something extraordinary. Mining lasers would become artillery. Cargo haulers would become fighters. And the hegemony was about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon had never been its military technology. It had always been its people. The war was just beginning. And for the first time since the fleets vanished, Jinwoo Park believed they might actually win. Shi-Yuan Choi was welding a support beam on Mining Station Gamut 12 when her work tablet began flashing red. She pulled off her helmet and squinted at the screen. An encrypted message had appeared with activation codes she had never seen before. Protocol Ghost Tiger is now active, the message read. All civilian personnel report to designated stations. Your real training begins now. Dayun frowned. Real training? She was just a mining engineer. She fixed broken equipment and supervised rock extraction. What did she know about fighting aliens? Her supervisor Minho Jiang appeared beside her. Workstation. His usually cheerful face looked serious. Did you get the message too? What does it mean? Dayun asked. Minho pulled up his own tablet. Look at this. It's instructions for converting our mining lasers into weapons. And these blueprints. They want us to turn the cargo haulers into fighters. Across the station, other workers were gathering around their tablets with confused expressions. The baker, the maintenance crew, the communications officer, even the station's doctor were all reading the same impossible instructions. This is crazy, muttered Tae-Han Yoon, who ran the station's small hydroponics bay. They want us to become soldiers overnight. But Dayun was already studying the technical specifications. Her engineering mind began to see how it could work. The mining lasers were powerful enough to cut through solid rock. With some modifications, they could easily punch holes through alien armor. The cargo haulers had strong engines and heavy shielding, had some weapons, and they could become dangerous. Fighters. Maybe it's not so crazy, she said slowly. We have all the tools. We just never thought to use them this way. 3 days later, Dayun stood in the converted cargo bay that now served as their war room. Round her 23 civilians who had become something else entirely. The baker had learned to operate targeting systems. The doctor was now their explosives expert. Tae-Hyun had discovered he was excellent at tactical planning. Their first test came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors picked up 3 hegemony patrol ships approaching the station. These were the same aliens who had somehow erased humanity's entire military from existence. Remember, Dayun told her team as they climbed into their converted mining mechs, they think we're helpless civilians. They don't know what we've become. The hegemony ships landed in the station's main docking bay exactly as expected. 20 alien soldiers in sleek battle armor marched out, clearly expecting no resistance from a simple mining operation. They were wrong. Dayun's team hit them from 6 directions at once. Mining lasers designed to slice through asteroids made quick work of alien armor. Industrial mechs built to handle tons of rock easily overpowered surprise soldiers. Within 10 minutes, the battle was over. How did we do that? Gasped the station's former communications officer, staring at the defeated aliens. Because they studied our military, Dayun replied, pulling off her helmet. But they never studied us. Similar scenes played out across human space. On New Busan, farmer Jong-soo Kim used his agricultural mechs to destroy an entire hegemony landing force. On Research Station Alpha, scientist Young Ji-shin converted her laboratory into a bomb-making facility. Everywhere the aliens expected easy victories. They found humans who refused to stay beaten. But the most important revelation came from General Lee's next broadcast. His weathered face appeared on screens across human space, and his expression was grim. People of Earth and her colonies, Lee began. I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we're winning these small battles. The bad news is that I now know how the hegemony learned so much about our military structure. He paused, and Dayun could see anger burning in his eyes. We had human traitors, people who sold information about our fleets, our bases, our defense plans. That's how the aliens knew exactly what to target when they used their dimensional weapon. Dayun felt sick. Humans had helped destroy their own military. But those traitors made one critical mistake, Lee continued. They thought our real defense was those shiny battleships and official armies. They had no idea that our true military doctrine was always about you. Every mining station, every research facility, every farming colony was designed to become a fortress when needed. Every civilian was trained to become a soldier. Dayun looked around at her team with new understanding. The endless safety drills they'd complained about, the required training and equipment operation that seemed overly complex, the emergency protocols that covered scenarios that seemed impossible. It had all been preparation for this moment. The aliens took our armies, Lee said, but they left us our people. And now they're about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was never our military technology. It was our refusal to give up. Dayun smiled as she looked at her converted mining laser. Tomorrow, another hegemony patrol would probably arrive. They would expect to find helpless civilians instead. They would find humans who had remembered what they really were. The awakening was complete. The Hegemony War Council studied the tactical display with growing confusion. Their second wave of ships had launched 3 weeks ago, expecting to occupy defenseless human worlds. Instead, half their fleets were reporting heavy casualties from enemies that should not exist. "Explain this," demanded Warprime Kethfer, his forearms gesturing at the red indicators covering the holographic map. "Our intelligence was perfect. We eliminated their entire military structure." Subcommander Veltas shifted nervously. "The humans are not fighting according to standard patterns, Warprime. They use no organized formations. Their weapons are improvised. Their tactics make no sense." On the farming world of New Sol, Tae-Heyun crouched behind his converted harvester and watched the alien dropships land in his wheat fields. 6 months ago, he had been complaining about crop yields and weather patterns. Now, he was about to destroy an entire hegemony battalion with nothing but farm equipment and human stubbornness. "Remember," he whispered into his unit, "these things have never seen a real farm before. They don't know what we can do with our tools." His neighbor, Sujin Park, responded from her position near the irrigation system. "My sprayers are loaded with industrial acid instead of fertilizer. When I give the signal, those aliens are going to have a very bad day." The hegemony soldiers advanced across the fields in perfect formation, their energy weapons sweeping left and right. They expected resistance from buildings and defensive positions. They did not expect the ground itself to become their enemy. Tae-Hyen triggered the first surprise. His grain harvester, modified with armor plating and cutting lasers, burst from the tall wheat like some ancient monster. The aliens had no word for combine harvester in their language, so they had no idea how to fight something designed to cut down everything in its path. Sujin's irrigation system activated next, but instead of water, it sprayed corrosive chemicals that ate through alien armor in seconds. Across the fields, a dozen other farmers emerged with their own converted equipment. Seed planters became grenade launchers, tractors became tanks, crop dusters became fighter aircraft. The battle lasted 20 minutes. The hegemony battalion was completely destroyed. Similar scenes played out across human space. On Mining Station Beta 7, the asteroid miner Dongman Park showed the aliens what happened when you gave humans access to industrial explosives and no rules to follow. "They want to play with physics," Dongman muttered as he programmed the guidance system on a converted asteroid. "Let me show them some kinetic energy." The rock, no bigger than a school bus but traveling at tremendous speed, punched through 3 hegemony warships like they were made of paper. The aliens had shields designed to stop energy weapons and missiles. They were not prepared for chunks of space rock moving at significant fractions of light speed. Dr. Yoon Ji-shin had been studying alien biology for 15 years before the war started. Now she used that knowledge in ways her university professors had never intended. From her converted research station, she analyzed captured hegemony equipment and prisoner interrogations. "I think I understand why they're losing," she told her team during their daily briefing. "Look at these social structure files we pulled from their computers." Her assistant Yujin Ko studied the data. "They have a caste system. Every individual has a specific role that never changes." "Exactly," Youngji said. "A warrior is always a warrior. A worker is always a worker. A scientist is always a scientist." The idea that someone can change roles is completely alien to them. She pulled up footage from the new Soul battle. They saw Tehan as a farmer, so they expected him to act like a farmer. They couldn't comprehend that a farmer could become a soldier overnight. Their psychology simply doesn't allow for that kind of transformation. This discovery changed everything. Human resistance leaders began using the aliens' rigid thinking against them. Research stations were disguised as medical facilities. Military equipment was hidden in farming communities. The hegemony kept attacking the wrong targets because they could not understand that. Humans refused to stay in neat categories. The aliens' greatest weapon, the quantum displacement field that had erased Earth's formal military, proved useless against this new enemy. The device required organized formations and clear command structures to target. But human resistance operated as thousands of independent cells with no central command. There was nothing organized enough for the weapon to lock onto. War Prime Subcommander Veltas reported during their emergency meeting. The displacement weapon cannot target the human fighters. They have no military structure for the system to recognize. Kethver's mandibles clicked in frustration. Then we adapt. Send in ground forces to occupy their worlds directly. We have tried War Prime. Every occupation attempt has failed. The humans fight with tools we do not recognize, using tactics that violate all military doctrine. On Luna Station, Commander Jinwoo Park watched the tactical displays with amazement. Across human space, ordinary people were defeating professional alien soldiers through sheer bloody-minded creativity. A baker on Titan had destroyed an enemy patrol with explosive bread. A musician on Europa had weaponized his sound equipment to devastating effect. General, Lee's voice crackled across the comm channels with barely controlled satisfaction. They studied our military and thought they understood us. But they never understood that every human is a weapon when you push them far enough. Let them hear us roar. The roar was deafening, and it was coming from every direction at once. General Hyan-Soo Lee stood in the command center he had built inside. Series mining station surrounded by screens showing data from across human space. What had started as scattered resistance cells had grown into something the galaxy had never seen before. He called it the roaring because that's what it sounded like when humanity got angry. Report from New Seoul called out his communications. Officer Minho Jang. Farmer units destroyed another hegemony supply convoy. No human casualties. Titan Station reports successful defense against orbital bombardment. Added Dayun Choi from her position at the tactical display. The mining crews turned their equipment into anti-aircraft guns. Lee nodded with satisfaction. 6 months ago, these had been ordinary civilians. Now they formed the most effective fighting force in human history. The hegemony had expected to fight Earth's military. Instead, they were fighting Earth's people, and that was proving to be much more dangerous. Every human settlement had become a fortress. Every trade route had become a trap. The aliens could not move anywhere without facing attacks from enemies they could not predict or understand. On the cargo ship Bright Star, Captain Dongman Park checked his instruments as he approached. The Jupiter freight lanes. His vessel looked like any other merchant hauler, but hidden in the cargo bay were enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. Hegemony patrol ship detected, reported his gunner, Sujin Park. 3 vessels, probably expecting easy prey. Dongman smiled grimly. Let's show them what civilian shipping can do. The alien ships moved to intercept, probably planning to board and search his cargo. They had no way of knowing that every civilian vessel in human space now carried enough firepower to level a city. When the Bright Star opened fire, the surprised aliens had less than 30 seconds to realize their mistake. The ambush was perfect. 3 enemy ships destroyed, no human casualties. Just another day in the Roaring's ongoing war. Back on Ceres Station, Lee received a transmission that made his day even better. Dr. Yoon Ji-shin's research team had made a breakthrough with captured alien technology. General Yoon-ji's excited voice crackled through the comm. We figured out how their quantum displacement weapon works. Better yet, we think we can build our own version. Lee raised an eyebrow. To bring back our missing fleets? That's the interesting part, Yoon-ji replied. We could do that, but I have a better idea. What if we use it as a weapon instead? Possibilities sent chills down Lee's spine. If humans could displace enemy fleets the same way the hegemony had displaced Earth's military, the war would shift dramatically in their favor. But first came the aliens' desperate attempt at negotiation. The Hegemony War Council, facing mounting casualties and no clear path to victory, sent an official diplomatic message to all human settlements. "People of Earth," the mechanical voice announced, "we propose an immediate ceasefire. We will return your displaced military forces in exchange for your unconditional surrender. This is our final offer." Lee's response was broadcast across both human and alien communication networks. He wanted everyone in the galaxy to hear what humanity thought of their generous offer. "Hegemony War Council," Lee said, "is weathered. Face-filling screens across known space, you can keep our soldiers. We've learned something important over the past year. We don't need fancy battleships or professional armies to defend ourselves. We just need to remember what we are." He paused, letting his words sink in across two species. "You made one critical error when you started this war. You thought our strength was in our military. You were wrong. Our strength is in our people. Every farmer, every miner, every engineer, every shopkeeper. You wanted to fight Earth's army? Instead, you've got Earth's children, and we're much more dangerous than you imagined." The message concluded with words that would become legendary. "So thank you, Hegemony. You've taught us that we never needed permission to be warriors." 3 weeks later, Dr. Yoonji Shin's team completed their work. The human version of the quantum displacement device was smaller and more efficient than the original. But instead of targeting enemy military formations, it could be aimed at any large object in space. "Target acquired," reported physicist Eugene Ko, from the control station they had built on Luna's far side. "Ord S7, 6th Fleet, 47 ships, holding position near Mars." "Are all civilian vessels clear of the target zone?" asked Yoonji. "Confirmed." "All human traffic has been rerouted?" Yoonji took a deep breath. "Fire." The effect was immediate and terrifying. 47 alien warships, including their massive command dreadnought, simply disappeared. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where moments before an entire fleet had existed. Across the hegemony's remaining forces, panic spread like wildfire. The humans had turned their own super weapon against them. Worse, the displacement attacks continued over the following days. Fleet after fleet vanished into the void, displaced to empty regions of space where they could cause no harm. The hunters had become the hunted. The hegemony, which had once seemed invincible, now faced the same terrifying fate they had inflicted on humanity's military. But this time, there would be no negotiation. The roaring had found its voice, and it was the sound of a species that refused to stay beaten. The war was almost over. Humanity was winning. The surrender message arrived on a Tuesday morning, transmitted simultaneously to every human settlement in the galaxy. War Prime Kethfer's voice, once confident and threatening, now carried the weight of complete defeat. "To the human resistance forces," the alien leader said. His words translated into dozens of human languages. "The Hegemony Council formally surrenders. We request immediate cessation of all hostilities and ask for mercy in our defeat." General Hyan Suli sat in his command center on Ceres Station, surrounded by the same civilian volunteers who had helped him coordinate a galaxy-spanning war. Dayun Choi, still wearing her mining engineer's coveralls, looked up from her tactical display. With disbelief, "Sir, are we really winning?" she asked. Lee smiled, feeling suddenly very old and very tired. "We won 6 months ago. They just finally admitted it." Across human space, the news spread like wildfire. A new soul farmer Tae Hyun was repairing his converted harvester when his cum unit crackled with the announcement. He sat down heavily in his wheat field and started laughing. A year ago, his biggest worry had been crop yields. Now he had personally destroyed more enemy equipment than most professional soldiers ever saw. On mining station Beta 7, Dongman Park was loading another asteroid with explosives when the surrender came through. He looked at the rock he had been preparing to launch at an enemy convoy and shook his head. "Well," he told his crew, "I guess we won't be needing this one after all." But the real surprise came 3 days later, when reality itself seemed to shimmer and bend near Luna Station. The quantum displacement field that had started the war was finally reversing itself. After 18 months in dimensional exile, Earth's formal military was coming home. Admiral Sang-Ho Kim materialized on Luna Station's main docking bay along with the first wave of returning officers. He stepped out expecting to find a broken, defeated humanity waiting for rescue. Instead, he found something impossible. The station buzzed with activity, but not the kind he remembered. Men and women in makeshift uniforms coordinated supply runs to former battlefields. Civilian engineers supervised the salvage of alien technology. Children too young to remember the old military ran messages between command posts. "Admiral on deck," someone called out, but the response was casual, almost distracted. These people had more important work to do than stand at attention. Commander Jinwoo Park, whom Kim remembered as a junior officer, approached with a datapad in his hands. "Admiral Kim, welcome back. I'm afraid you've missed most of the excitement. We finished mopping up the last hegemony holdouts yesterday." Kim stared at his former subordinate. "Commander, what is the meaning of this? Where's proper military protocol? Why are civilians running combat operations?" "With respect, Sir Jinwoo," replied, "they're not civilians anymore. None of us are. We learned that distinction doesn't mean much when your species is fighting for survival." The Admiral demanded to see whoever was in charge. That led him to General Lee, who greeted him in a converted mining station that had become the nerve center of human resistance. General Lee, Kim said stiffly, trying to maintain some semblance of military decorum. "I demand to know why formal command structure was not restored upon the enemy's surrender. This entire operation is completely outside proper military doctrine." Lee, now in his 70s and wearing a simple jumpsuit, looked at the Admiral with tired eyes. "Sang-Ho, do you know what we learned while you were gone?" Kim bristled at the informal use of his first name. "Enlighten me." "We learned that everything we thought we knew about warfare was wrong," Lee said quietly. "You see those people out there? That engineer who destroyed 17 enemy convoys? That farmer who single-handedly defended an entire colony? That baker? Who figured out how to turn bread into explosives? They didn't need our battleships or our training or our fancy tactics. They just needed to remember what they were. And what exactly are we?" Kim asked. Lee's answer would be quoted in history books for centuries. "We're humans, Sang-Ho. Take away our ships, our weapons, our armies, and we'll fight you with rocks and sharp sticks." Because the most dangerous thing about humanity was never what we carried in our hands, it was what we carried in our hearts. The Admiral tried to argue, tried to explain proper chain of command and military regulations. But his words fell on deaf ears. The war had changed everything. The people who had won it weren't interested in going back to the old ways. On colony worlds across human space, children played a new game they called the Roaring. They pretended to be farmers and miners and engineers who had become heroes overnight. They acted out battles where ordinary people defeated professional soldiers through cleverness and determination. The adults watched these games with mixed feelings. The children were celebrating a victory, but they were also celebrating the knowledge that humanity had never needed anyone's permission to be dangerous. In the end, the guns had never stopped roaring during the war. They had just changed hands, moving from professional soldiers to ordinary people who refused to stay beaten. The echo of that roar would be heard across the galaxy for generations to come.